Super Dimension Fortress Macross is single-handedly the most surprising anime I have watched since Saint Seiya, and we all know how much I loved Saint Seiya. The only thing it had going for it really for me out of the gate was its release date, which is October 3rd, 1982. Now I love anime from that time. You really never know what you're gonna get though. Usually it is delightful and campy, but rarely, I don't know, like genre defining. And don't get me wrong, there definitely are some out there, but you know, for the most part, it's kind of 80s entertainment. The other thing Macross had was a slew of pretty rad shoot 'em up games I've enjoyed throughout the years, but besides that, I knew it was a mech anime and an old one, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I am not a huge fan of mech or super robot subgenres. A lot of that is just happenstance. Those series tended to be on late at night in my formative years, and I personally think samurai and martial arts are cooler than OP destructive technology, and I think that's why G Gundam was so fun for me. It was a good mix of all of that, and we all know how I feel about G Gundam, my dudes. Anyway, looking into Macross was simply a curiosity for me, a, well, why not kind of moment. I do like to know my history at the very least, and this series is certainly influential and mentioned a lot within what I would call second tier otaku circles. Basically, once you get over your shonen boner, you're gonna hear about Macross at some point, guaranteed. Unfortunately though, access to the series, its prequels, sequels, movies is highly restricted, i.e. it is difficult to come across, i.e. you know what you gotta do. And do what you absolutely should, because I cannot tell you how fast and how hard I fell in love with this series, and not just SDF, which is the first run and should definitely be where you start, but also the rest of Macross as well. Okay, except for Macross 7, look, I tried to love it. Like, I tried so hard, guys. Dude flies around in space fighting aliens with 80s Japanese glam rock while he pilots his mech with a guitar. I know that sounds like something I would love more than anything I've ever seen, but there was just something about it that turned me off. It's probably because the rest of the franchise isn't just funny, but it's also nuanced and really good. For some reason, 7 just did not hit that spot. The rest of it is amazing. So let's start at the beginning. This is Super Dimension Fortress Macross. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's that time of the video where I tell you why it's a really good idea to join the Bonsai Pop Patreon. I know I've said it a million times before, it's the best community on the web, especially if you're into video games or anime. Boom, cat in the window. We care about two things here: freedom of speech, right? YouTube, not big proponent of that. And obviously, being able to put out more content has been a big issue that we've been wanting to deal with. Patreon allows us to do that with the ability to hire editors. So if you like this video at the end, maybe watch another one. And if you kind of like what we're doing here, the only way that we can continue to do it is through Patreon support. YouTube, like, it's just, they don't like us. The other option, of course, if you're not into that, you know, like G Fuel, guys, like, it's a very important partnership with our channel. Our code is BPOP, and right now, 30% off. So if you're into G Fuel, I definitely recommend the hydration formulas. Major hangover cure, let me tell you. Anyway, that's just, thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time, and on with the show. Bye. Yeah. First off, let's address the elephant in the room that I've been ignoring so far. This is Shoji Kawamori. Some of you guys have probably heard of him. If you haven't heard of him, have you heard of, I don't know, The Vision of Escaflowne? He created that. No? How about Eureka 7, Outlaw Star, Glass Fleet, Space Battleship Yamato, Ghost in the Shell? Maybe? I don't know. He created all the mech and ships designs for those series. Still no? Maybe you've heard of the Armored Core series by FromSoft. You know, the people who just put out Elden Ring? He made all the mechs for that series too. How about fucking Transformers, bro? Yeah, Kawamori-san's original Diaclone toy line became the Transformers, and this isn't even close to everything he's done, but the man is a legend and a genius when it comes to ships and mechanical design. He invented transforming robots. Super Dimension Fortress Macross is his first series. Oh, you're telling me that you thought the elephant in the room was Robotech? That's a whole different story. Well, kind of. Just know that the series Robotech, which is definitely more popular in the West, is a mix of Macross SDF, SDF Southern Cross, and a show called Genesis Climber Mospiata that were put together to make something people thought the West could handle at the time. And we'll probably talk about it in a future episode, so just hold tight. But the question now should be, okay, Kawamori-san can design a robot, but can he create a universe that inspires emotional investment? To that, I would say, does 8 different Macross series and a ton of movies over 34 years answer that question? And it all starts right here. Now, I've probably hyped this up to the point where you're expecting SDF to simply like melt your eyes out of your skull, and look, that's not going to happen. It's still old, maybe even a little primitive. I mean, there are many points where you can straight up see animation cells behind star overlays like being moved. Now, this does nothing to detract from the greatness, but there are certainly some visual wonks here and there, repeated animations, essentially very typical budgetary fudgery at work that plagued this era of anime. It's also very characteristic of the time period, so I felt right at home watching the show. I love that crap, as long as it isn't overdone, and SDF rides the line extremely well. But enough of this for now, let's get into the meat, right? Something that got me right away is how Macross starts off by exposition dumping a fascinating story. In 1999, an alien ship the size of a city crashes to Earth, prompting a unification war, resulting in a globalized government. Like, okay, can I have that anime too? I mean, you want to go into some crazy aspects of the human condition, you dive into the existential threat of a hostile alien invasion and the need for humanity to come together as a whole in order to protect our species. Guys, that doesn't happen overnight. We can't even get Bob over here to get a fucking vaccine to protect himself, his family, his friends, and people with compromised immune systems. How do you plan to get that selfish asshole to work with the Chinese to protect not just himself, but, Africa and the Middle East and all those scary Muslims and brown people from the aliens? Yeah, chew on that for a while. I mean, not to mention the religious upset something like this would cause. I mean, it would just be a really awesome anime. Give it to me. But no, Macross is just like, yeah, so that happened. And now there's a world government, but we also reverse engineered the ship and made it an Earth ship, and we named it Super Dimension Fortress 1 Macross. How badass is that? Enjoy the show. So here we are in the futuristic year of 2009. On the launch day of the Macross, the government and military are together to celebrate the achievement a young stunt pilot named Hikaru Ichijo is attending via request from his friend and senpai, Roy Fokker, yes I laughed, who happens to be a combat pilot for the UN Spacey. That's the space arm of the military under the Earth Unified Government, and it's a great name. They should have called it the Kevin Spacey. Now, around this time, an alien force named the Zentradi has entered the solar system and identified the Macross as a battleship that was used by their old enemies, the Supervision Army. And we hear nothing else about them, but know that the Zentradi are kind of on a major genocide run when it comes to them, and we may discuss this series more in the future, and we'll get into that more then. Anyway, Fokker, go ahead and laugh, and Hikaru have one of many philosophical debates that happen in the show about the military during the ceremony. Fokker thinks that Hikaru should enlist, but the kid likes flying for flying, right? Not to do harm or kill, which makes sense. I mean, I imagine killing someone sucks. I know I've certainly worked to avoid doing so in my life successfully. So far. Anyway, the Zentradi interrupt the ceremony with an invasion causing major chaos and destruction to civilians and military alike, right? So Fokker takes off to go protect the world while Hikaru is just sitting in a brand new VF-1 Valkyrie fighter. However, the higher-ups in the military mistake Hikaru for a soldier and set him to launch, which gets him caught up in the battle. Naturally, he's shot down, and during this fall, he's directed by Bridge Officer and Best Girl Misa Hayase to go to Configuration B, which causes his jet to transform, growing chicken legs and humanoid arms. And as his ship literally smashes through the city just full of people, the transformation completes, leaving him in a humanoid mech. And this is a Valkyrie. This is the flagship of the Macross series, a super versatile attack craft which goes from fighter jet to mech and also has an in-between stage. And it's not really stated, at least not in this series, but I think the idea is speed to combat transition. While all forms of the ship are super deadly, I mean, just look at this. There's like missiles flying out of this thing all over the place. I think you can get the most speed out of the jet and the most firepower out of the mech, and the Chicken Walker is a nice balance. Also, Star Fox totally stole that shit, 100%. Back to the story, Hikaru comes to a stop in front of a humble Chinese food restaurant which is owned by the family of one Lin Minmei. She is immediately fascinated by the ship and its pilot. She's not even that mad when he falls face first into her home and almost kills her and her family. Then Fokker arrives to give Hikaru a fix-up and a crash course in piloting the Valkyrie while citizens evacuate to their shelters. Minmei, however, gets caught up in the crossfire, leading to one of the most iconic rescue scenes in anime. The effort that was put into this animation, especially at the time and for a show that was syndicated for television, really sold me on it. So far, we're in episode 2. The music is great, the action and characters are great, but when I saw this, I knew I was really in for something. This showed how much care was put into it. So after her rescue, Hikaru is hit again by a Zentradi mech, and Minmay is knocked unconscious, and in a desperate attempt to defend her and his life, he fires on the Zentradi mech, which destroys it and severely injures the pilot, who then exits the craft, revealing that the Zentradi are giants and also aliens, but they look like people. The pilot stumbles towards Hikaru's Valkyrie, but is then turned into Swiss cheese by Fokker. It's really, really convenient. And this is the first death that Hikaru would witness, and he's all traumatized and stuff. He's taking it seriously. Now, while all this is going on, the Macross is desperately attempting its first launch during an invasion. Generally, we take this kind of technology for granted, but let's be real for a second. Getting a ship that big off the ground, let alone through the atmosphere, is crazy, even with alien technology. Nobody knows if the thing can even do it. However, the launch was a success, and now in the air and under heavy attack, Captain Bruno J. Global, who is not allowed to smoke on deck, issues the order to engage the fold system. Again, this is technology that people have not used before, at least not on the Macross scale from what I understand. And what the fold is it's like a kind of warp drive which has allowed advanced species to travel vast distances through the cosmos. Now, unfortunately, when the fold occurs, it also takes the entirety of South Eteria Island and all of the citizens on it to Pluto. Basically, it creates this interdimensional wormhole bubble and just takes a giant chunk out of the planet. Now, luckily, the war shelters seem to work in space, so nobody insta-freezes and dies. Well, at least not anybody inside a shelter. But yeah, they're all rescued and placed aboard the Macross, where they go to work building a giant city-state inside of the ship itself. Meanwhile, Hikaru and Minmay are trapped well below deck in a giant ship alone. Now, this is kind of where Macross begins to take shape as a series. This time alone with Hikaru and Minmay sparks the beginning of a long and convoluted romance between the two. The way I look at the series is characters first, romance second, robots third. And of course, philosophy and politics are all intermixed into it very well. It's to the point where different ideologies and opinions and desires aren't smashed into your face, but instead thoughtfully explored through the rest of the show from many angles. Even Minmay's creepy anti-war cousin, who comes in later like a bull in a china shop, has a little bit of nuance. Regardless, obviously, Minmay and Hikaru find their way above deck just as they're about to starve to death and rejoin the citizens of the Macross, and from there, the long journey back to Earth commences, as the Macross is constantly harried by the Zentradi. So let's talk about them for a bit, because they're wild. These giants are a warrior race. In fact, that's literally all they do, is destroy other species. However, they have some issues with humans due to their potential for being the fabled and feared protoculture. Now, this isn't super well explained in SDF, but the protoculture is the progenitor species of both the Zentradi and humans, right? So there's a lot of backstory there, like 450,000 years worth of backstory, but basically just know that the Zentradi are a rebel faction of the protoculture that broke off a long time ago and became giants out of choice. They became warriors based on the idea that it is the nature of life to wage war, or at least the true nature of the protoculture that they originally came from. It's a little complicated. But these guys, they don't get it on. In fact, the men and women of the species stay mostly separate from each other, and they reproduce inorganically. I'm not sure if it's cloning or test tubing, but the fucking ain't happening, dude. The protoculture is presumed extinct at this point. However, the humans seem to exhibit alarming characteristics of it, which scares the shit out of the Zentradi. This leads to them working more to intimidate the Macross and spy on the activities of its civilians, instead of just easily wiping it off the face of existence. I mean, these guys, they have way more than enough firepower to take this ship out. And they're just they're taking losses too. It's crazy. Macross does this Macross punch thing. I mean, dude, people are dying. And that's interesting too, because you get different factions within the Zentradi that want to do different things. Some of them just want to wipe out the humans. Some of them are interested in the humans. Some of them are scared of the humans. But it is the prime law of the Zentradi not to engage with the protoculture. Now, as the Macross makes its way home, the main cast of characters drastically changes. And by that, I mean they grow as characters. Of course, some new people are added in, some people, die. But Hikaru eventually decides to join the military in order to protect the Macross, but mostly because Minmay thinks that he should, and he wants to impress her. Meanwhile, Minmay decides to follow her dream of being an idol and becomes the official voice of the people of Macross. And this is another really important part of the series, is music. It's very clear within the series that the creators believe that music is the universal language, and this is something that is used throughout every single iteration of Macross. By universal language, that means, even if you can't understand what somebody is saying, you can understand the emotions that they're trying to put through with the sound of music. Now, while she's off doing her thing and Hikaru's off doing his thing, they do grow increasingly farther apart. Their lives are taking them in separate directions. However, their achievements and exploits are constantly broadcast to each other, so they're always kind of on each other's minds. Meanwhile, the hard-ass Misa Hayase begins to soften up thanks to Hikaru, because at first the two deeply resent each other. The militaristic ideal of jump when I say jump just doesn't really sit right with Hikaru, but after becoming a war hero, gaining his own seniority and fighters to look after, and having responsibility put on him, I think he begins to understand the difficult position of making choices that involve people's lives, the kind of choices that Miss Hayase has to make all the time. And Minmei becoming the spirit of the cross takes a major toll on her and her freedom. She's got this agent that's always up her butt, she never gets to sleep. However, let me just say, her bops are bopping as fuck, dude. I will forever have my boyfriend as a piloto living in my head rent-free for the rest of my life, dude, I swear to God.
But I can't show it to you because Japan is fucking psychotic.
Also, thanks to the spying of the Zentradi, her music is being broadcast to them as well, and this has been happening since she won the Miss Macross pageant. Honestly, it's a pretty funny series of developments. When the Zentradi soldiers see Minmei in a bathing suit, they get a funny feeling and start freaking out about the proto-culture. The music does the same thing. This idea of fun and love begins to infect the Zentradi force, causing major issues. At one point, Hayase, Hikaru, and one of Hikaru's subordinates are captured and transported to the Zentradi mothership, and Hayase and Hikaru are forced to kiss in front of their leader, like, I don't know, like something like a weird little kid would make you and your boyfriend or girlfriend do, and they all freak out because of the tingles they get in their dingles from witnessing it. So whenever you hear some weeb talking about culture, like, this is actually where that came from. Like Macross literally invented that. Really, without spoiling things, I mean, what else can I say? The characters are lovable. I'm a major Hayase stan. The music is great. It has all the 80s drip. The battles are bombastic and very frequent. The action comes all the time. There's fucking missiles flying all over the place, ships blowing up. There's even Zentradi you end up really liking. There's levity when it's needed. Sometimes the show can just be a day in the life of X character. It really takes no effort to get emotionally invested in it. I mean, it's a really good show that stands up to the test of time. And now that I have you all loosened up, let's discuss why we're talking about Macross, because this wasn't supposed to be our next video. We were halfway done with A Night on the Galactic Railroad script when we decided to shift course. Macross was in the works, but we moved it up, mostly because we didn't feel like it was a good time to talk about existential terror. Now, thematically, there is a lot going on in Super Dimension Fortress Macross. I mean, take your pick, really. There's shots fired at culture shock, coming of age, nostalgia traps, capitalism, war. There's questions about why we fight and what we fight for, what reasons are right and which are wrong. Now, in the last 100 years or so, there's been enough strife on this planet that it would take multiple lifetimes to simply educate yourself on all of it, okay? Life is hard and it is complicated, and right now, especially so. In America, freedoms and rights are being taken away. The right to eat us the fetus, my dudes. The right to educate people on institutional racism and homosexuality. The right to voting access. For a lot of people, their rights to simply exist are at risk, and their already limited powers are being taken away. Inflation is at a major high. The environment is pretty screwed. Oh, and there's still a panini in effect, though it's getting better, I guess. And now overseas, there is a small, sniveling, cowardly man trying to puff out his boy chest to the world by violently assaulting the sovereignty of a free nation and threatening the existence of our species if anyone interferes. Would you not know you were watching Bonsai Pop? Aww. Sorry, not sorry about your escapism, but the reason shows like Macross SDF are created is to make people think. If that's too hard for you, man, door's over there, that's fine. During production of SDF, right, the Cold War was still in full effect. For decades, countries east of the European Iron Curtain were forced into being communist Soviet puppet states. They suffered and looked on as the West enjoyed, well, existing, but also, you know, thriving, which back then was a major luxury, especially if you were under communism. And obviously I say communism in quotation because it's not really communism. Anyway, after the collapse of the USSR, these countries were given their freedom and sovereignty. They were able to join the rest of the world and to modernize. The mass censorship and repression was lifted off of them, and they could breathe easy and watch some goddamn anime. But there is no doubt in my mind that these Zentradi were created to represent the Soviets, because believe it or not everyone in Russia liked or likes being controlled by their government. Okay, things like liberty, freedom, and self-expression are infectious. I mean, look how easy it was for Napoleon Bonaparte, right, to take advantage of that during his reign. Peasant uprisings everywhere, down with the monarchy, down with the bourgeoisie. The seed of simple enjoyment and freedom and a little bit of autonomy was planted in the Zentradi by Mime, and it changed them, right? It causes insurrection, it caused desires, it allowed them to feel love for the first time. I mean, obviously it's a little ham-fisty, but you get what they're trying to say here. The Zentradi were essentially brainwashed by the head of their government and so censored from feeling things that all they knew how to do was war. One thing spying on the Macross did to the Zentradi in particular was cause sympathy for the enemy. If you blow up the Macross, you blow up Mime, bro. That is not cool. Now see, when you're a little man with a little weenie who dominates through fear, threats, and censorship, you're gonna chafe some people's nuts, namely your own people. But when you attack an innocent nation for no reason, you're going to chafe everyone's nuts. And my nuts are fucking chafed. Right now, for the first time in a long time, real heroes are appearing on the world stage. There's a man that is leading by example, standing up to bullying and terror to show the world that no matter the threat, you cannot roll over and let a paranoid manlet take your shit. And it's shows like Macross that master this concept of macro and micro theming, okay? The macro theming is supposed to make you see comparisons to the world around you. But just as importantly, the micro theming is supposed to allow you to make comparisons between the medium that you're viewing and what's going on in your own personal life. Now, just so you guys know, YouTube is beginning to roll out some fun new algorithmic changes that we are actively right now trying to combat. I mean, I'm sure some of you are like, oh, why aren't you saying names? Why aren't you specifying exactly who you're talking about, you know, other than showing images? And the reason is because there's a possibility that in like a month, this video won't exist anymore. But again, this guy right here is one man leading his nation and honestly kind of the world by example. But that doesn't mean that that same concept can't apply to you or me. And obviously we get a lot of flack from it. People complain constantly. But what I try to do here is lead by example. What him and his country are doing right now to protect their sovereignty is at the same time tragic, but also one of the most inspiring, beautiful things I have ever experienced in my entire life. That's passion, man. So let's go from the macro to the micro really quick. Lead by example. I believe that it's the only way to lead. It's a different fight here, obviously, not even a comparable one. YouTube isn't committing, you know, crimes against humanity besides giving the Paul brothers a platform, but that's a different story, or, you know, threatening my life in any way. However, it does rule through censorship and fear of your livelihood, namely losing it. People tell us all the time in the comments, meh, don't talk about things, and they say that for a lot of reasons, mostly selfish ones, because people want bubblegum and we give them the beef tartare, but also because being real hurts the channel. Thanks to YouTube wanting Coke commercials on my videos to maximize their profits. No Coke commercials, no promotion. But that, my friends, is fucking terrorism. And I don't negotiate with fucking terrorists. We may not be the biggest channel in this sphere. We're certainly not the biggest channel on YouTube. But I'm always going to do my best for you guys and for myself, honestly, because it's important to me to follow my heart and do what I want to see done from other people. People that have literally 15.9 times our reach. To talk about the important things, to let people know that they aren't alone, to not submit to the capitalist commercial overlords that dictate what I can and cannot say at the expense of our growth as a YouTube channel, okay? Fuck that. But Mike, anime is about escapism. I don't like to watch anime because for things that make me think. Guys, anime is a window into an artist's philosophical viewpoints and political stances, okay? At least most of the ones we talk about, right? I mean, we're not covering trash anime. You see a video about Metropolis, you're gonna be there for Metropolis, right? Okay, the point of a story is conflict, and then conflict resolution. And I'm not gonna spoil the rest of Macross SDF because I really want you to watch it, but shit goes down. It's not the kind of anime where everyone makes it out alive, and I kind of appreciate that, even when it hurts, because that is reality. And while you can hide from reality to a certain extent, it's always there. But why we fight is something that pervades the entire series, and it's an important debate. The answer generally defines the kind of person that you are. Do you fight for yourself, for a cause, or simply to protect people who can't fight? Do you fight for ambition or selfish goals? What is your battle even? And it may seem like you live a life with no fight, just getting through day by day, but if you look forward, you will see something that you're working towards. Conflict is an intrinsic aspect of not just life, but humanity. It's why a story isn't a story without one. Conflict is the essence of change, and things are always changing every second of every day. And right now, thanks to some changes, reality is pretty tough. People are spouting a lot of bullshit, both misinformation and disinformation. They are fear-mongering for attention, money, and power, trying to make people scared of what might come next. And now, I'm just a guy, okay? I don't have all the answers for you, but what I can say is we simply need to do what it is that we can do for what we have our individual focus on, right? If you're concerned about the future, focus on what's happening right now. In Buddhism, we're taught about suffering and living in the moment, and I'm paraphrasing heavily, okay? But the idea is to live in the moment and focus on that. Be there, be present, do what needs to be done now. The reason for this is that no matter what you may think is coming down the pipeline, you're going to be wrong one way or another, even if you think it's good. Nothing happens like we imagine it will. The idea then is to let the future come forth naturally, and then it too will be the moment, and you can deal with it then, right? That whole do what you need to do now. If you do that, your hopes won't be crushed, your fears won't be for nothing. It's a way to steady yourself, and I think we all need some stability right now. Certainly more for some than others, okay? Like, where I am is way better than where many other people are. Like, I mean, we are in a good spot over here in Western Massachusetts, all right? But for those of you guys that are out in more active areas, like, I'm thinking about you, okay? I feel like, really. And personally, my heart goes out to the heroes of Ukraine and the protesters in Russia, because they're heroes too. And to the people of both nations that are being victimized by a murderous little man with a tiny penis and a rough-ass hairline, whose mommy probably didn't love him much. But believe it or not, despite major disasters that happen, I mean, wow. Macross SDF is not a depressing show. It's actually pretty uplifting, right? It showcases the human element of warfare and conflict in a bright, beautiful spotlight, because that is the difference between victory and defeat, are those small moments where people do something out of this world. Of course, there are very small amounts of outdated, mildly misogynistic moments and a cross-dressing joke that isn't really funny anymore. But not only does that come with the territory of the 80s, it's ultimately harmless at this point. It's just dated. Otherwise, it is a master-crafted show that has aged very well and kicked off an extremely important and beloved series with other excellent entries. I'm currently on Macross F and I'm in love with it. So here's what it comes down to, right? Even in the darkest times, not everyone always has to have the weight of the world on their shoulders. So if you can, for the time being, right, keep calm, carry on, and if you need a break, and you can take breaks, you are allowed to take breaks. It is okay to take a break, my dude. Check out Macross SDF. I guarantee it'll make you feel better. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. Before we go, I just wanted to point out, because I'm going to get a lot of comments on it. Look, I don't have anything personally against Joey the Anime Man. He's a very easy target when it comes to basically calling people out for making kind of gross content about flashing your money around. And he's also kind of the head of, you know, our community on YouTube. Look, like, you know, when people think anime, they think YouTube, they think Joey the Anime Man. And then they see him flaunting around thousands of dollars in front of his young fans. I just think that's kind of gross. That's it. That's all. It just sucks to be like automatically associated with stuff like that. All right, that's it. And now if anybody says anything in the comments, you can be like, oh, you should watch the whole video, idiot. So we're on a good spot. This is great. I would like to thank our lucky patron of the week, the Lone Orchid, and our high tier patron of the week, Meeple Puppet. You guys are great. Thanks to all of our patrons for making this kind of content possible. And that's all I gotta say for this one, guys. My name is Mike. This is Bonsai Pop. Thanks for watching, and we will actually legitimately be back very soon because we contractually have to. That being said, I'm very, very excited for our next video, and you should be too. So I'll see you there.